Black boy called a monkey learning years old, skinny, small, black. Jordan Lewis stepped into the Warrior's Path dojo, wearing a worn-out GI, frayed sleeves and cheap sneakers that thudded awkwardly against the polished wooden floor. It was his first training session. And already, his differences became the center of every stare. Under the harsh buzz of fluorescent lights, surrounded by rows of crisp white uniforms and light-colored heads, Jordan stood out. Not in a way anyone would want. Not for pride, but because he didn't belong. In the back corner, Jake and Connor, two seasoned black belts, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Jake tilted his head, smirked, then muttered to his friend, "Look at him, like a damn monkey trying to learn how to walk like a man." Connor snorted. "A monkey doing karate? That's new." The words hit like a stone, dropped into a still pond. Then came the laughter. Quiet, scattered, but sharp enough for Jordan to feel every syllable slice through him. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't turn around. He just clutched the edge of his GI, fingers trembling, breath held tight, as if maybe, just maybe, the storm would pass if he stayed perfectly still. No one stood up for him. No one said a word. Even Coach Mitchell glanced over, then looked away, as if it was nothing, as if Jordan wasn't. And in that moment, for the first time in his life, Jordan understood. There are rooms with open doors that still refuse to let you in, and there are laughs that don't need to be loud to make a child feel less than human. From the second session on, Jordan began to understand. This wasn't a place to learn martial arts. It was a place to test how much pain he could take. The light contact drills, meant to be controlled, respectful, quickly turned into punches aimed straight at his face, kicks delivered without restraint. Every time Jordan gasped for air, dropped to one knee, or winced in pain, laughter echoed, followed by syrupy apologies from Connor or Jake. "Oops, forgot to pull back. Oh, I thought he could handle it." Coach Mitchell, the man who loved saying martial arts builds character, stood nearby. His eyes passed right over the misdirected blows, the sweep that slammed Jordan flat on his back. But he said nothing, made no corrections, no calls to stop, just adjusted another student's hand position, as if nothing wrong had happened at all. Jordan started bringing bruises home, a faint swelling under his left eye, a shoulder joint that burned when he turned too fast, and when his mom asked, "Are you okay?" he forced a smile. Just training a little harder, that's all. One day, Connor landed a hard kick to Jordan's chest. Jordan went down, gasping, coughing, trying to catch his breath. Connor leaned down, whispered just loud enough for only them to hear. "Guess in your neighborhood you only learn how to fight dirty. Out here, we call this technique." Jordan said nothing, didn't cry, but for the first time, he realized. Physical pain wasn't the worst part. It was being treated like he didn't deserve to be there. And worse, it was all happening under the mask of technical training. Elijah Lewis was the kind of man who believed in discipline. He had served 8 years in the Marine Corps. He believed in the power of training, that boys had to learn how to endure, to become men. So when Jordan said he wanted to learn martial arts, Elijah didn't hesitate. He chose Warrior's Path, the most respected dojo in the area. A place to build backbone, not a playground, he had said. One afternoon, Elijah decided to drop by the dojo unannounced. He wanted to see how his son was doing, to see the skinny boy he'd raised transform into a warrior. But what he didn't know was that everything had been rehearsed long before he stepped inside. The moment his silhouette appeared behind the glass doors, Connor and Jake, who'd just been slamming punches into Jordan's shoulder, suddenly switched roles. They became gentle sparring partners. Brace your arm turned into, nice, keep it up, buddy. That's the way. What had been a punishing blow became a feather-light tap. From brutality to picture-perfect form, in seconds. Coach Mitchell was quick to approach as well. Wearing a polite smile and the eyes of a seasoned salesman, he said, "He's a little slow, but he's hard-working. I believe with time, Jordan will catch up." Elijah looked at his son. Practicing basic moves, face calm, no bruises in sight, no shouting. He nodded. "Good. I don't need him to beat anyone. I just need him to learn discipline." Jordan glanced over. Their eyes met, just for a moment. But no words were spoken. One man believing everything was fine, the other swallowing the pain and nodding along. That night, Jordan came home later than usual. His footsteps were soft, careful. His shoulders slumped slightly, aching with every deep breath. Under the sleeve of his shirt, his elbow was swollen, bruised purple, rinsed the wound and with cold water, scrubbing gently, making sure the faucet didn't run loud enough for his mom to hear. But he couldn't hide everything. At dinner, when he ate with his left hand, her eyes narrowed. "You okay?" she asked, scooping more rice into his bowl, tilting her head to study his face. Jordan gave a small smile, avoided her gaze. "Yeah, just a little rougher training, that's all." He smiled, but flinched ever so slightly each time he swallowed. She nodded, not fully convinced, but not pushing either, and he just wanted the questions to stop. Later that night, when the house was quiet, Jordan stepped into the bathroom, turned on the small light. He stood still before the mirror, took off his shirt. A deep bruise ran across his chest, from his sternum to his ribs. There was a scrape on his shoulder, from when he'd been swept off his feet and slammed into the hardwood floor. He touched it lightly, bit down, didn't make a sound. Then, he looked straight at his reflection. A 14-year-old boy, skinny, small, dark circles under his eyes, cracked lips, and skin that was black. He whispered to himself, so softly the air barely moved, "Little weak monkey. Maybe I really am what they say." A tear slipped down. He wiped it away quickly, not because he wasn't sad, but because he was used to being strong when no one really saw how much he hurt. That night, he fell asleep with a strip of cloth wrapped clumsily around his arm. And one question looping in his mind: if I disappeared from that class, would anyone even notice? Night 19, since his first class. Jordan sat quietly in his bedroom. The soft yellow light from his desk lamp spilled across the edges of a worn notebook. There were no shouts, no kicks to the ribs, but the echoes still pounded in his chest. He picked up a pen. His hand trembled slightly, and then he wrote a single line, small, but heavy as stone. "Martial arts isn't for me. I'm tired." He stared at the words for a long time, as if staring into himself. Then, slowly, he stood. His eyes drifted to the corner of the room, to the yellow belt hanging on the wall. That belt had once been a badge of pride, proof of 3 months of persistence, of not giving up. But now, it felt like a reminder that he'd been pretending, playing the part of trying in a game never meant for him. Jordan reached up, took the belt down, folded it carefully, crease by crease, and tucked it into the bottom drawer of his desk, the place where he kept things he didn't want to remember. No tears, no anger, just emptiness. He turned off the light, laid down, arms wrapped around his chest, turning to the side that wasn't bruised. And in the darkness, Connor's voice returned. "Monkeys belong in cages, not in dojos built for men." Jordan didn't fight back this time, didn't argue in his head, didn't try to prove anything, because deep down, a part of him had started to believe that maybe they were right. Maybe he never belonged there at all. The next morning, after Jordan had already left for school, Elijah stepped into his son's room to tidy up. He didn't usually snoop. But when he saw the desk drawer slightly ajar, a corner of yellow fabric peeking out, he froze. The yellow belt, folded, tucked away. Next to it lay a notebook, opened to a single page. Scrawled across it were the words, "Martial arts isn't for me. I'm tired." Elijah stood there for a long time. His hand rested on the page. He said nothing. As a former Marine, he had faced bullets, fire, even death, but nothing had ever sunk into his chest like this, the quiet surrender of his only son. That evening, when Jordan came home and stepped into his room, he froze. His father was sitting there, the yellow belt placed neatly on the desk, the notebook open. Elijah didn't yell, didn't interrogate. He simply placed a firm hand on Jordan's shoulder. "You're not weak, Jordan. They just want you to believe that, but I don't." His voice was low, steady, no pity, just an unshakable belief. That night, for the first time in years, Elijah opened the garage door, the same space where he used to train each morning during his service. He hung up an old punching bag, placed a pair of gloves on the floor in front of Jordan. "From now on, you're going to learn how to fight, not to win, but so you never have to fall down again." Jordan looked at the heavy bag swaying in front of him, and for the first time, he felt like he had a place to begin again, not as a small, skinny kid, but as someone learning to rise. From that day on, the garage behind the house stopped being a dusty old storage room. It became a dojo in the dark. No mirrors, no red mats, no echoing cries of "Ki." Just the thud of fists hitting the heavy bag, the sound of labored breathing, and the sharp crack of jump ropes snapping against concrete. Every morning before the sun rose, Jordan was up the length of the neighborhood in silence, sweat soaking through his shirt before the sky even began to brighten. The first few steps were heavy, stiff. His old shoes rubbed raw against his heels, drawing blood. But he didn't stop, because Elijah waited at the end of the block, arms folded. A single nod when his son finished the run. No applause, no words of praise, but his eyes. They told Jordan he was on the right path. At night, when other kids were gaming, or drifting off to sleep after a long school day, Jordan wrapped his hands, stepped into the garage. He punched, then punched again, until the white wraps turned gray with sweat, and sometimes red with blood. Some nights, he hit his limit, collapsed to the floor, breathing like he'd drown in his own exhaustion. But Elijah would appear again. No yelling, no pity, just sitting beside him in the dim light, voice calm and steady. "Strength isn't in your muscles, Jordan. It's in not giving up." Jordan nodded, wiped his tears, got back up, and kept punching. In that dark garage, no one saw him. But maybe it's the places where no one's watching that a true warrior is born. 1 month later, Jordan walked back into the Warrior's Path dojo. Same wooden floor, same stairs. Jake and Connor still leaned against the wall, that same smug grin curling their lips. But this time, Jordan didn't lower his head, didn't shrink into himself, didn't fumble nervously with his belt. He walked straight to his spot, took a deep breath, stood tall, and waited. Sparring drills began, partnered Jordan and Connor. As expected, Connor didn't hold back. His first punch drove straight into Jordan's chest, a tight spiral of force. Jordan staggered, but didn't fall. He pivoted, reset into his stance. Jake laughed from the sidelines. "Still can't block, monkey?" Jordan didn't reply right away. He took 2 more hits, a sharp kick to the side, another grazing his shoulder, then suddenly stood upright, eyes locked on Jake. "I'm learning," he said calmly, not a trace of fear in his voice. "Faster than you think." The room stilled. Jake's smirk wavered. He squinted, but this time he couldn't read Jordan. No panic, no submission, only one look, sharp, still, unshakable. Throughout the session, Jordan still took hits, still faced pressure. But he didn't back down, didn't break, didn't react with anger. He defended smarter, endured longer. And the most unsettling thing for the bullies was that he wasn't afraid anymore. He was still Jordan Lewis, but no longer the skinny, shrinking kid they once saw. He didn't fight back with fists. He fought back with something stronger, an unbreakable presence. The tournament announcement board was posted right in the center of the dojo. The open division, a brutal no-limit bracket open to all belt levels, including black belts. A battlefield where the strongest showcased not just skill, but dominance. No one expected it. But the first name on the sign-up sheet was Jordan Lewis. When Coach Mitchell read the names aloud, the dojo went silent for a second, then erupted in laughter. Jake threw his head back, clapping mockingly. Connor scoffed. "He can't even take one of my kicks, and he wants to fight black belts?" Coach Mitchell raised an eyebrow. He walked over to Jordan, his voice laced with polite sarcasm. "Not afraid of broken bones, Jordan?" Jordan stood tall, didn't blink, then slowly answered, each word hitting the floor like a dropped weight. "I already broke my trust. There's nothing left to break." The air went still. No more laughter, no more sneers. In that moment, Jordan's eyes weren't the eyes of a 14-year-old boy. They were the eyes of someone who had been crushed and still chose to rise. Tournament day. Jordan stepped onto the mat, wearing his old yellow belt. Small, thin, a speck in the middle of a crowded gym. But his eyes blazed. His opponent, Jake Harrison, 2-year black belt, 3-time champion. Everyone said the match would end fast, but no one knew how much blood, sweat, and tears Jordan had shed to stand here. The referee shouted, "Start!" Jake charged in, aggressive, confident, explosive. But the first kick, blocked. The next punch, dodged with a tilt of the head. And Jordan, the scrawny kid once mocked as a monkey trying to learn karate, began to rewrite the rules of this fight, with nothing but his body and everything he refused to surrender. The bleachers were packed. Whispers rippled through the students. People had come to witness something rare. A yellow belt, skinny, small, black, daring to challenge a system that should have swallowed him whole by now. Connor stepped onto the mat first, hair slicked back, smirk dripping with arrogance, his gloves tapped together in rhythm. He leaned toward the referee, just loud enough for Jordan to hear. "I'll finish him in 1 strike." "Begin," the referee called. Connor charged like a predator, fast, aggressive, certain. But before he could even touch Jordan, clean, spun, precise. His heel slammed into Connor's ribs. The impact sent Connor flying, flat on his back. Gasps filled the room. He tried to rise, but his knees buckled beneath him. 20 seconds. Knockout. Jake, standing at the edge of the mat, froze. The color drained from his face. No smirk, no swagger. Just a flicker of panic creeping into his eyes. Next match, Jake versus Jordan. Jake lunged first, fast, relentless, a barrage of strikes. But Jordan was no longer the boy who bowed his head and braced for pain. He blocked, slipped, pivoted, countered, a low kick to the base leg, a sharp hook to the ribs, a reverse strike under the chin. Jake stumbled back, chest heaving, guard down. Jordan stepped forward, not fast, but deliberate. One straight strike, centered, final. Point, Lewis, match, Lewis. The entire dojo fell silent. Then slowly, one by one, they stood. No cheers, no applause, no laughter, only silence. A silence so thick, it felt like the entire room was witnessing not just a victory, but an unspoken apology no one had the courage to say aloud. Jordan bowed his head. No smile, no celebration. He stepped off the mat, carrying with him a silence heavier than any ovation. But this time, it was the silence of respect. After the tournament, Jordan left the dojo with his backpack slung over his shoulder, walking alone toward the parking lot. No lights, no crowd, just the late afternoon wind and the crunch of his shoes on gravel. As he reached for his car door, a shadow lunged from behind. Jake, a hook to Jordan's left shoulder. Before he could react, Connor appeared, landing a kick to Jordan's back, slamming him to the ground. "Think you're hot now?" Jake snarled. "You think winning one match makes you somebody?" Jordan didn't reply. He pushed himself up, blood tracing from the corner of his lip, but his eyes, calm, unshaken, not afraid, not angry, only instinct. The instinct forged in dark mornings and colder nights, in sweat-soaked garage floors where strength was learned, through silence and grit. In a flash, he twisted, sweeping Connor's legs clean out from under him. Jake barely had time to react before Jordan delivered a sharp roundhouse to his knee, dropping him with a groan. Then, a clean, decisive uppercut. Jake hit the ground, eyes wide, dazed. Connor scrambled to get up, but Jordan was faster, locked his arm, slammed him backward onto the pavement. Connor howled, twisting. Jordan released him. No insults, no swearing, no gloating, just stood there, chest heaving, and said one line. Soft, but heavy enough to crush every illusion they had. "This time I didn't fight to win. I fought so they'd never try this on anyone else again." And with that, he turned, walked away into the dark, leaving behind the two former symbols of strength, groaning on the cold concrete. And every step he took, measured, quiet, steady, was the loudest victory of all. 1 week after the tournament, a video captured by a spectator of Jordan's stunning victory began circulating within the local martial arts community. But it wasn't the technique that made it go viral. It was the story behind the kick. A former student, unable to stay silent, filed a formal complaint. Then a parent spoke out. Then another, and another. Audio clips, witness statements, text messages, piece by piece. They came together to reveal a fractured, rotting picture of what really happened inside Warrior's Path. An official investigation began. Sensei Mitchell, who once preached martial arts builds character, was found guilty of enabling, covering up, and perpetuating a culture of systemic abuse. His teaching license was revoked, permanently. Warrior's Path shut its doors in silence. The dojo's sign was taken down, like it had never existed. Jake and Connor, once hailed as tournament kings, were banned from competition for 4 years. Students left. Their families' reputations crumbled. No one called them fighters anymore. And Jordan Lewis, the boy who was once mocked as a monkey learning to walk, was personally invited by a renowned martial arts master to serve as an assistant coach at a new dojo, Valor Dojo. Unlike Warrior's Path, this place didn't teach students to prove themselves. It taught them when to strike and when to stand still to protect someone else. Jordan stepped into his new dojo, wearing the same belt, still stained with dried blood. He didn't say much, but when guiding a younger student, a boy who was bullied for his stutter, Jordan said just one thing. "They don't hate you because you're weak. They hate you because they know you're going to be strong." And that boy, just like Jordan once did, threw his very first punch into the heavy bag. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of Valor Dojo, casting warm golden streaks across the wooden floor. In the quiet room, Jordan stood before a group of young students. Different races, different sizes, but all their eyes locked on him. Sensei, if I'm small and skinny, and my skin's a different color, can I still learn martial arts? Jordan smiled. His gaze softened, but his voice stayed firm, like stone. You might be small, you might be skinny, you might not look like anyone else, but don't you ever believe you're weak just because someone else told you so. He walked toward the back wall. There, framed in a wooden box, hung his old yellow belt, frayed at the edges, torn slightly, but honored now, like a relic. Below it, in bold black ink, Jordan had written, "I'm not a monkey, I'm a warrior, and I climbed out of the cage they built around me." Silence. Then, slow, steady breaths, little heads bowed, not out of fear, but respect. Jordan turned, stepped slowly to the center of the mat. Martial arts isn't about winning. It's about surviving. It's about holding on to who you are, even when the whole world tries to convince you you don't belong. From that moment forward, a new generation began. One not shaped by prejudice, not confined by skin, not bent beneath the weight of false power. Jordan had broken free from the cage, and now he had come back to free others. If you've ever been called something you're not, share this story, because no one gets to tell you who you are, except you.